Vin.
I'm sorry.
That's Booby.
And Chip, Vita.
And Rocky.
Happy Halloween, folks.
We are Christians.
Reacting to metal. Wearing corpse paint. I feel different. I actually like it. I like wearing it.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Say no lie.
Well, I like it. But I always like stuff like this. I did this once when I was 15, I told you that.
Great.
I was not allowed to leave the house.
They wouldn't let you leave the house either. If I was your parents. But I'm not. This is Kathaarian Life Code by Darkthrone. Should be interesting. This is from the this is a Patreon pick from the True Cult black metal group. So they're also the ones that afflicted us with this corpse paint. So
Enriched us, I would say.
I'm gonna have Booby with us so that I can have some sort of friendship.
I have something too.
That's good. That's very good. All right. Well, let's do it. Kathaarian Life Code.
Go.
You seem to enjoy yourself.
I did.
What'd you
Have
like
you heard
about
this
it?
band before?
Never heard of them before.
I just liked it. It goes with the paint well. The whole vibe fits very well together.
Yeah, I was watching you, and then you're like, yeah, and the 12 disciples.
And then I was like, wait, what are we saying about the 12 disciples?
We killed the 12 disciples.
I was just enjoying singing along with it, and then I
built
was
the
like,
throne
wait,
on their bones.
wait.
I was like, okay,
So I
what
get
team
to-
are you on? What team are you on?
Well, who knows?
Yeah, looks like you're having a hard time.
You have no idea.
I think this one was the most musically ambitious black metal song we've heard. A lot of rhythm changes,
Yeah.
a lot of style changes.
What is the name of this band?
This is Darkthrone.
I like them.
A lot of rhythm changes, a lot of style changes.
Yeah.
Definitely low production, but that's black metal. But you could tell these are good musicians. Mm-hmm. Like I feel
I actually like the riff in the middle there. Well, I don't know if it was the middle, but the one that they were repeating. Now I can't do it because you know I am and stuff like that. But
yeah.
that.
Yeah, there were a couple points in the song where it's like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes in black metal, the musicianship is just trash, but then it's like, oh, it's low production, so it's supposed to sound like that. Like I was watching...
You get away with mediocrity.
Yeah, I was watching a guy, and, you know, it was just trash. What he was doing was just trash, but he was like, it's supposed to be lo-fi and blah, 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 because it's black metal, you wouldn't understand. It's like, no... I could still tell that you don't really have much talent on the guitar. You know, like, because I don't have any talent on the guitar, and I can replicate what you just did.
In like 2.4 seconds.
That's how I measure. So it's like, these guys, they were all over the place in a good way. It's just, they kept it black metal, it was lo-fi, and you know.
Yeah.
But I The other thing that's really strange to me is the vocals. Like, at the beginning, he was kind of like coughing it out.
Yeah,
it took me like halfway through the first stanza for me to realize,
the lyrics
oh
are
shit,
going
he's
on.
talking
Yeah.
here. These are the lyrics. And like, I don't know. I just assumed that everybody that was doing dark or heavy music always was just had the same template of death vocals and all the rest of it. But
Not true.
that's not true. Like, there's a ton of variation there if you actually listen to the music. What was it about the song that you liked?
The vibe of it, and it matched the paint.
What was the vibe?
I don't know. Dark and mysterious and dog.
Very eloquent of you.
I don't know how else to say it. I just liked it. Can't somebody just like it?
No, I just
And I don't even know what we were singing about.
face of the goat in the mirror. We've become a race of cursed seeds. I entered the soul of the snake. We are ablaze in the northern sky. So the goat is a symbology of Satanism, or this form of Satanism.
It just
or
makes me
whatever.
want to go around and cause trouble. I think it's the combination of the two.
Well, what's his name? Behemoth.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we're going to Behemoth show tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, he talked about wolves of Siberia. And then this one is like coyotes, you know. It's like, I think a lot of this stuff, when I really listen to it, it's tapping into your animalistic urges, because it seems to me that they feel that religion is trying to put
A damper on that.
a damper on people's animalistic urges,
You
and
disagree with that?
it becomes an oppressive force. Well, I don't believe that we're animals.
No, not that we're animals, but that
Well, I
we
think
have that. It's just another way of saying shadow self. Shadow self,
No,
because
I
your
don't think
shadow
it-
self.
I don't think it is.
Well, Mike, can I finish, or are you gonna press me more?
Go for it.
Our shadow self is just the side of us that we don't want people to know about, and a lot of times that's a side of you that you could consider animalistic in the way that it acts and the things that it wants to do.
Yeah, so I believe that these people believe that we're actually animals. That's the difference.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that. But.
You know, like when we say animalistic, it's pejorative because we believe that we're a higher order of being than animal.
Yeah.
But a lot of folks believe that we're just evolved animals. So when I say animalistic, it's not necessarily pejorative in that sense. To them, it's kind of like, this is our true nature. Like you trying to live something higher than an animal is just your own anthropocentric, ego.
Oh, yeah.
And then religion kind of comes in and stifles your animal impulses. But the fact of the matter is, you are an animal, so why try to stifle it? That's what I mean. When you say shadow self, that's almost universally looked at as a bad, dark, evil, whatever. But I'm not sure that, and again, I think a lot of the personifications and the aesthetics are dark, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that people who are Satanists or identify with darkness are saying, I'm going to be as dark and as evil as I possibly can. To me, it's, look, I'm an animal, I have these animalistic urges, you have a religion that's trying to, stop them. Like they talked about the 7 forbidden things, which is obviously a reference to the 7 deadly sins, right? There's lust and rage and sloth and all that stuff.
In the Bible or in, like, according to the Catholic religion?
Well, in Catholicism, you have the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, which would be the mortal sins, right?
Well, there's more mortal sins than 7. But
There's 7 deadly sins?
There are 7 particular ones that are common to human experience that are deadly.
Okay.
And I agree. I mean, lust is bad, rage is bad, jealousy is bad, envy, that type of thing. Like, all these things, like, have led to a lot of death and destruction. But it seems like each beast of the land took its own way in living. The 7 forbidden things were eternally desecrated. It's like, we're gonna live and completely embrace that, and we're the beast of the land. What's interesting is that the term beast of the land is a biblical term. It's beasts of the earth. The beast of the earth or the beast of the field or whatever. And it's kind of a walk back. But again, to me, this is sort of like saying we're not higher than them, because God creates the beast of the field, but then you have man, and man is higher. But here they're not referred to as men and women; they're referred to as beasts of the earth or beasts of the land.
Yeah.
I think the Hebrew term is haretz, or I'm not sure. I don't have my Bible software in front of me, but that's what it looks like to me. Is that which is it's very interesting.
Why?
Because Romans 1 says, proclaiming themselves be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for the images of beasts, etc., etc., etc. So it's like, here we are. We have one for you that says, hey, you're in the image and likeness of God himself. Hey! And then you have people going, no, I am a beast of the land. And there's that exchange, and it seems that there's a fulfillment of Romans there, where you exchange the glory of the immortal God. God has given you a bunch of glory as being an image bearer of God.
Yep.
You reject that, and now you've reduced yourself to a beast of the field, who then, it seems to me that the being able to manage your impulses is one of the things that makes us human.
So you think that they're saying you can't manage that?
I think what they're saying is it's virtuous not to manage that.
Virtuous?
Right. The 7 forbidden things were eternally desecrated. They took their own way of living. So it's like, to engage in the 7 deadly sins is a virtuous thing in this world. In this land, Kathaarian or whatever it's called.
Yikes.
Right? Every beast of the land took its own way in living. The 7 forbidden things were eternally desecrated. So you have the coyote thing. There's 2 or 3 themes here. You have the cursed seed, the darkness thing, and then you have the coyote thing, which is symbolic of our animal instincts, I'm assuming. So they work together. The spiritual darkness goes with the animal impulse, because it seems to me the spiritual darkness here is a matter. You need that as a sort of engine to overcome the religious preconditioning. I think is what's happening is how those two work together in this song, and
I see.
maybe in this paradigm of living.
I see. Okay.
Well, you don't see how.
No, I didn't know what any of the song was about, so I'm just like taking this in as you're explaining it.
This line was crazy. Baphomet and steel for the flesh of Cain.
Yeah. This was the one I was singing, but I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
Is it like the worst of all the lines?
Baphomet, it's pretty bad. Baphomet, that goat thing?
Yeah.
So that it says, in steel for the flesh of Cain. It seems that they...
It solidified his...
Well, the steel is
stature.
probably a sword killing the disciples of, the 12 disciples. And then you build the throne on the bones of or the remains of the 12 disciples.
Wow.
And then it's kind of like for the flesh. The for there seems to be like in vengeance, This is for Cain, killing Cain, because...
That's interesting.
Right, because it seems to me they have the perspective that God cursed Cain and God was mean to Cain.
Yeah, read the story again.
when actually the person who would come to avenge Cain would not be Baphomet. In the narrative, it's God. Mm-hmm. God is the one that avenges Cain.
Yeah.
And God is Cain's protector in the Bible.
Yep.
But, Cain is... and it says in the Bible that Cain belonged to the evil ones.
Mm-hmm.
First John 3 or 1 John 4, do not be like Cain who murdered his brother, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he kill him? Because his brother's actions were righteous and his were evil. So, yeah, Cain belonged to the devil, but the devil wasn't his protector. God was his protector. A throne made by remains of 12 holy disciples. New disciples rose, one by one,
Like
10
bad
by 10.
ones. Is that what it means?
Yeah,
from
to
that?
replace them.
Yikes. All met under the desert moonlight. Knowledge fired across the landscape, sparks that mixed with coyote eyes, diabolic forces in a ceremonial union. Is this the whole, the idea that religion, basically slices away your knowledge? Because when they got in trouble in the garden, it was because of the knowledge, and people think that God wasn't going to eventually give them the knowledge. It was that they reached out and took it for themselves, but people always look at it as all they wanted was knowledge, and then God punished them for wanting knowledge.
Right, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's not the tree of knowledge. It's a knowledge of good and evil. That's not the same thing, because it's not as if Adam and Eve were completely ignorant prior to eating of the tree. It was knowledge about a specific thing. And really what's going on, in my opinion, what's at stake in the tree is who is going to determine what good and evil is. Is God going to determine that, or is man going to determine that? Well, I think, and you see it played out in the song where they talk about the 7 deadly sins, is God has decreed that these are terrible things to do, and we're going to go off and live it, we're going to live our way. Well, if you want to live in a society where lust and anger and laziness and and envy is encouraged,
And by all means, join them.
Gotham is yours. So yeah, I think that's what there just seems to be a lot of presuppositions about what God actually says and what the Bible actually says and who God actually is. I've said it a million times. If God, whatever God that is, yeah, absolutely, you should reject it. So go for it. Reject that God who wants to keep knowledge from people. The God of the Bible doesn't want to keep knowledge from people. So the problem is that from a biblical perspective, knowledge is a gift of God.
Yeah.
That's given to us because He is an infinite being and we are finite. And so we're going to have to marshal all the mental powers we have to even have a conversation with Him or understand Him. I think in the grand scheme of things, like the doctrine of the Trinity, for example, which is extremely difficult to comprehend.
Yep, and explain.
Or even apprehend or explain. It's just basic stuff. That's God 101.
Yeah.
But, so that's why we have knowledge. So in the Bible, we're encouraged to seek after knowledge. There's an entire book called Proverbs where there is a high premium on knowledge and gaining wisdom. And you're told to seek after wisdom as much as you can, that wisdom is currency, that knowledge is the currency of life.
Right.
And of course, wisdom is probably knowledge applied righteously, is what I would call wisdom. Right? Is knowledge applied righteously. It's, and you understand this when you become a parent. There are certain things that you do not tell your kids until they're ready for it.
Right. Yeah.
There's certain areas of knowledge that you don't open up to kids until they're ready for it. Because it's destructive. And I think, so, but there's this whole.
Remember that movie? What is it called? Like The Giver, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
And like he like held the understanding of all the violence that humanity had done,
Right.
and like everybody else that information was kept from them.
Right.
And like when he gets past that information, like he almost completely loses himself.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, just made me think of that. Like the passing of knowledge, like, like, you know what I mean? Like if God were to tell us everything.
Well,
all that money,
yeah, exactly.
You know.
I mean, look at the 20th century.
Yeah. Right. Right.
We weaponize knowledge. That's why I said that wisdom is the righteous application of knowledge in life. But you have new disciples rose 1 by 1, 10 by 10. I thought that was interesting because it's like, if I, 10 by 10 is 10 times 10 is 100,
Yeah.
and so 101.
Yeah.
Is that the number? 1 by 1 would be 1, and 10 by 10 would be 100, so that's 101. I'm sure there's some like.
Oh, I just thought that it meant in groups.
Yeah, I'm sure that's well. It's right above the 12 disciples line. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I just figured that there is some numerology there or Kabbalistic number stuff that we're missing. But yeah, it seems to me Katharia was built world without end. It seems to me that
So this replaces religion.
in the Bible, Cain, after he leaves God's presence, he goes out and the first thing he does is build a city.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's like it seems to me like that's what's happening here. Katharia. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what that. Maybe that's a mythical world in this. Maybe this is a concept album. But it seems that Katharia is kind of like this place where.
Isn't that remind you of catharsis? What's catharsis?
It's when you like are able to express yourself and.
Oh, so you think it has anything to do with that?
And it's a form of expression where you feel good afterwards, like having a good cry or yelling and screaming.
I don't know. Maybe
yelling and screaming when you're
feel...
angry and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, maybe Katharia is just the world where you get to like completely be yourself and.
And they think that it's going to bring about like catharsis, but.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But I can see how you would think that. Like sometimes I think like that. I'm like, it would feel so good to just completely act the way that I want to act.
Yeah.
But then I like think about that and like long term that, and I'm like, nope, can't do that.
Well, when you have kids and you're older, I mean, when you're in your 20s, you write stuff like that. I'm assuming these guys were in their 20s when they wrote that stuff. Mm-hmm. So like before you have kids and things like that, yeah, you that's the ideal. But then when you start taking on responsibility and you have other people that are depending on you, then
mm-hmm.
it's not like that.
Right.
Then life becomes a little bit different. And then all these rules start making sense. Mm-hmm. Because then you start managing little humans. Mm-hmm. And you start imposing 7 deadly sins on them.
Yep.
No, you can't steal your brother's Lego. No, you can't punch your sister in the eye.
Right.
Why? No, you can't just be angry and throw a temper tantrum. Mm-hmm. So, and then you can just imagine a little toddler with face paint, or corpse paint looking at their dad saying, "No, Dad, stop trying to," Mm-hmm. Anyway. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of like the Slipknot song where it's like I was able to see growth in Corey's writing as far as the message that he was putting out.
Yeah. And
like, I want to like watch because '92 was like their first or second record on Shaw, but like I'd like to like follow them and track them and see lyrically how they grew, mm-hmm. or if they even grew or changed or whatever. Mm-hmm. What do you give the song?
I like them. I'm 9.5.
The 9.2 for me is really, really good. This one I think I think right now they've got the crown as far as like ambitious musicianship. Because this could have almost been a progressive song.
Of all the
black metal songs?
I think so.
This is a straight up true cult black metal. This is like true cult black metal right here.
I really liked it. It alarms me.
Well, you have a lot of anger.
I do.
So.
I really do.
Well, you're mad at me. So,
I am.
So, there it is. So, like, Yeah. What did you give it? 9 point.
9.5.
It's a 9.2 for me. Yeah. I was gonna say something, but I forgot it. Oh, if this was like a highly produced song, this could be a prog song.
Oh.
Like it's got that many like changes.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
It's that ambitious.
That's probably gonna really insult them.
I don't know. I just think I think what they were going for is super ambitious, and I think that it could have been a prog song.
And I
if they
really like
wanted
the
it.
picture on the front of this album.
Is the guy's hair on fire?
No, I think his hair is just free.
That's also
There,
a
he's-
tombstone, I'm pretty sure.
It looked like a fence post to me. A fence. Looks like a fence.
Alright.
It looks like he's coming around the side of it. But I don't know, it just looks like
Okay.
looks like he's coming like this, and here's his hand up here, like, but he's got like that, you know? Good for you, buddy.
Vin out.
Sorry out.